Nice chatting. We'll enjoy the show today.
I'm kind of curious why there's always has to be background music and something like this, and also why it's always bad.
That's about my thing.
Makes everybody shout.
I did not choose the background. Give it a thumbs up.
What are they doing there?
Yeah, it's way up there.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Are you ready to get started? Love that. Love that energy. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. My name is Paul Caroli. I'm the executive producer of CityCast Denver, and we are so happy to have you all here for this State Senate vacancy election. Vacancy committee election. What are we calling it, Dean?
It's a vacancy election committee debate. I guess it's not a committee, it's just a debate.
Vacancy election debate.
Let's do it.
We have 7 candidates we're going to introduce you to in a minute. We're going to ask them questions. We're going to ask each other questions. But I think we need a little bit of context on why we're here. Some of you all obviously know this intimately. For others, it's a very secretive process. You know, like Santa's workshop. What you're about to see tonight is not something everyone gets to see. Deep, why are we here?
Yeah, I'll take it away as Santa's helper. So, even though I'm the one with the beard, so, you know, worked out well. So, as you know, vacancy committees, as you might know, vacancy committees is how we select our next state representatives and state senators when that representative or senator resigns. This is actually only done in five states total, Colorado and 4 others. What's particularly interesting is whoever's the senator or representative, whoever resigns, they are chosen, their replacement's chosen by their political party's vacancy committee. So that can be made up of various different things. The way the Democratic Party does it is they have quote-unquote insiders, also known as officers and precinct organizers. in this vacancy in particular, there's 110 of them. I think some of them are in the room. Raise your hand if you are a vacancy committee member.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I think that's like half the room. Okay.
Half the room.
And then the
nice
other
applause.
half, that was exciting. That they're just here to,
Here to see inside the shadowy back room.
Yeah, the shadowy back room. So that's a little bit about it. What's interesting too is about a third of the state legislature in the last 2 sessions has been appointed by these committees. I was talking to someone earlier, this is the most transparency this process may have ever seen. So we wanted to really thank the Democratic Party for opening up this process, shining a light in Santa's secret shop.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Are you all ready to do it? Let's do it. Let's do it. So let's introduce our candidates. Candidates, come on out, please. Take a seat. Join us. We'll introduce you. All right, yeah, a round of applause for the candidates, please. Thank you. Thank you. You got microphones there? Power water. Watch the microphones. Don't make that noise. All right, I'll introduce everybody from left to right. So on our far left on the stage here, Chris Chiari is a longtime advocate, activist, and entrepreneur. He's the current owner and operator at the historic Patterson Inn. Then Matt Ball is an Army Ranger, decorated combat veteran who received the Tillman Scholarship to attend Stanford Law School. He now works as the Director of Policy for the City of Denver. He's a father of 3 who lives in Capitol. Sean Camacho, Representative-elect, is a husband and father of 2 boys who attend public schools, a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, and an attorney in Denver. Iris Halpern is a dedicated civil rights attorney and community organizer. Monica Van Buskirk brings 2 decades of healthcare leadership experience and a record of passing legislation that helps people afford to live in Colorado. She's a small business owner and parent. Steve Woodrow, Representative Steve Woodrow, has served 5 sessions in the Colorado House. He's currently endorsed for SD 31 by a dozen sitting and incoming Colorado senators and over 20 current and former members of the Colorado House. And finally, Shanice Maloof is a Colorado native, pediatric healthcare provider, and the current chief of staff at Auraria campus. Okay, we have some ground rules tonight. I told the candidates over there, number 1 is be cool. They're going to have 60 seconds for their answers, including their opening statements. If they're revoked by another candidate, they can respond. Let's get to opening statements. Chris, let's go down the line. Chris, go ahead and start us off.
My name is Chris Chiari. Some of you may know me from being chair, captain, and co-captain in House District 2. You may know that I ran for Denver City Council in 2015, and you heard tonight that I'm the owner-operator of Denver's Patterson Inn. But it's safe to assume you don't know me. I knocked my first doors for the environment in 1993, reduce, reuse, recycle. I'm still doing that work today with Waste No More, which passed with 71% of the vote here in Denver. I'm unwavering in my commitment to organized labor, the environment, reproductive rights, and access. I'm running because energy has had its say in this district for long enough, and it's fine time the Senate district lead on clean air and clean water. I'm running on aging in place. I'm running because at 27, a doctor found a mole, melanoma. They told me not to make a long-term plan, but I'm still here. And I know the importance of single-payer healthcare and a public option. Patients over profits. You know, I didn't take their money when I ran for city council last time, and I won't take their money this time. Special interest lobbyists, they already have their candidates in this race and in the legislature. I'm running to be your candidate. My name is Chris Chiari. Thank you.
Now, Chris, it's time for the first twist of the evening. You're all going to get this question. Give us your favorite small business in Senate District 31.
Patterson Inn. It's a historic boutique hotel in 11th in Pennsylvania. Real quick question. Does anyone here know the difference between a boutique hotel and a bed and breakfast? It's the number of doilies, so the Patterson Inn is doily free.
All right, Matt. Your opening statement and your favorite business, a small business in Senate District 31.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. My name is Matt Ball. I'm a dad who lives in Capitol Hill. I have 3 kids who my wife and I are sending to DPS schools. I'm a veteran. I'm an attorney. I've been a co-captain in House District 6 for the last 2 years. And I currently work as the Director of Policy in the City and County of Denver. I'm running because I've lived a life of service and because when I came back from multiple combat deployments, I struggled with mental health like a lot of veterans do. And I have channeled that personal experience into the work that I do today. I have created and I run a program focused on high acuity mental health in the city. It's a program that has done great work on an issue that impacts the community that we live in every day. I want to take that work to the state senate. I want to be a champion and an advocate for mental health. Colorado is 46th out of 50th on mental health. We do really poorly and we need to do better, and it'll make a difference in Denver. I'm also running because I am passionate about climate. Chris Hansen carried the torch on that issue. We need someone who will take that from him and run with it. And I'm ultimately running because I think we need leaders in the state senate who can lead during this time to keep Colorado strong.
And don't forget, favorite local bar restaurant.
Oh, Licks, where I take my kids about once a and the Patterson Oak. He was there when we came.
All right, Sean.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Rep-elect Sean Camacho from House District 6, and I've already got this question a few times tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it. Why am I running for Senate District 31? And there's really two reasons. First, I've spent the last year having tens of thousands of conversations with everyone, with the vast majority of people who live in Senate District 31 about the issues that are most important to them. I ran on a campaign of change about promoting more housing, lowering our cost of living, and protecting our environment. And that message was overwhelmingly accepted by the voters. But there is something that is standing in the way from us achieving tangible progress in those areas, and that is Tabor. Until we address the issue of Tabor, we will continue to have the wealthy and well-heeled, not our elected officials, determine the fiscal policy of the state, and it needs to stop now. Second, the state Senate is woefully not as diverse as it needs to be for 22% of the population. We have 3 Latino senators in the state Senate, 2 of which will be term limited with no Latino replacements in line. Right now, we have an opportunity for representation for my community and to pick a person to represent us in Senate District 31 that has a clear legislative agenda, approved by the voters, and fills a need and representation that we desperately need in our party. Because if you have been watching the news since November, we have been losing communities of color from the Democratic Party in large numbers to Donald frickin' Trump. And now we have a chance to do something about it.
Sean, sorry, we need to hear your favorite small business in the district.
I love Stargazer's chocolate. John and his family are phenomenal. It is a small family-owned business, and John actually has that business so he can pass it on and teach the value of money to his kids. And I greatly respect that message because I have 2 of my own children. And I want them to know that too. So I support Stargazer's chocolate any chance I get.
Fantastic. Iris?
Hi, everyone. I'm Iris Halpern, and the big question that everyone has been asking is, why are we all running, right? I woke up, like everyone else, after the election and said, okay, Donald Trump won. This is obviously terrible, but, what we did last time wasn't enough, right? And so I said, I have walked the walk. I don't just talk the talk on making sure that our communities are protected and that our futures will be vibrant and thoughtful. And I've been doing that for a very long time. I was a union organizer with the Service Employees International Union for a number of years, traveling across this country, talking to people about their economic problems and helping them organize for economic power in their workplaces. And I'm a civil rights attorney. I worked for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and now at a law firm called Rathod Mohammed Bai. We handle some of the biggest police brutality cases. And I do a lot of employment discrimination and protecting students in schools. And I've done that work. I've helped pass multiple bills and laws at the state legislature protecting civil rights of students, employees, and making sure that we are all safe when we interact with the police. And I know that we're in for a very difficult 4 years, and we need someone who is going to have the experience to be able to take the fight to the federal government to make sure that our values and priorities and the things that we prioritize in this room will survive after the sustained attacks we're going to get federally.
Monica, I hate to interrupt.
And so that is why I'm running.
Iris, I hate to interrupt. I need that small business.
The small business. So I like seeing a wine bar, and if anyone ever wants to join me for a drink and hear more about my experiences or some of the ideas that I have or want to share their priorities, there's an excellent place to do that. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
All right. Monica, please.
I'm going to stand up because I know that everybody can hear us, but I want to make sure that people can see us. So hello, members of Senate District 31. Have a good evening. My name is Monica Van Busker. I'm a small business owner. I'm a mom to 2 awesome kids, and I've been a lifelong volunteer. I have a long history of volunteering within the Democratic Party here in Denver, and that's because my parents raised me with values of service. My parents are a nurse and a carpenter. I'm a foreign-born U.S. citizen in Belize in Central America, where they worked with the local community, and then we traveled with the migrant stream throughout the United States, harvesting food in various parts. That service carried through to my career, and that's why I'm running today. I'm fortunate to have a business degree and 20 years experience reducing healthcare costs, because that's the one cost that can bankrupt a family. As a small business owner, I know it stops you from growth, and it's 40% of our state budget. So we need someone with that expertise. But my question to you all tonight is, you're listening, is to hear what is it that you need from your next state senator. So I'm looking forward to hearing that.
And of course,
the best part of the question. Please look up the Kindness Concierge. So this time of year can be a year that has a lot of grief for people, and the Kindness Concierge is a business in district that will help you know what to say or send to your loved ones who are grieving.
Steve?
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to CityCast for hosting this wonderful debate. I am State Representative Stephen Woodrow, currently of House District 2, formerly of House District 6. I am your neighbor. With all due respect to Licks, which is wonderful, I got to go with Bonnie Bray ice cream as my choice for local business. I have spent the past 5 years at the Capitol fighting for affordable housing, workers' rights, gun violence prevention, and criminal justice reform. I'm the only one in the race with actual legislative experience. Some highlights: I passed House Bill 1313, the landmark transportation-oriented communities bill, Senate Bill 111, protecting public workers against retaliation, and House Bill 1298, repealing the Charleston loophole, closing the Charleston loophole on gun purchases here in Colorado. I have been endorsed by a dozen current and incoming senators and over 20 members, current and former members of the Colorado House. They know that right now we need effective representation more than ever, and that it takes relationships and experience to get big things done in the Senate. So thank you again for having us here. I look forward to listening, engaging, and earning your support.
You're welcome.
I already said Bonnie Bray.
Shanice.
Hello. My name is Shanice Maloof. I am a Colorado native, oldest of 5, and fiance to a wonderful man named Jonathan. Hey, babe. I am a healthcare provider. And why I am not running is because I do not aspire to be a politician. I actually am feeling a responsibility to stand up. And that's because in my healthcare practice, I help change laws, not just in this state, but in 6 other states, standing up for the rights of my patients. And I think now more than ever with the incoming election, the incoming administration, we need people with that type of experience at the Capitol. And I want to be clear with my intention and my passion for preventative healthcare. It's not just for physical and behavioral, it's also for how we take care of our environment. I think Chris Hansen has done a wonderful job standing up for environment, and it is now more important than ever that we don't lose that momentum. And finally, I'm feeling called to do this because I actually don't just have experience in healthcare. I'm also now the chief of staff of the Auraria campus. And I am very intimately knowledgeable of how the state is ran in terms of our budget. And I would love to talk to you more about that, but I'm going to leave it to my colleagues.
Oh, one last thing.
Oh,
your favorite local business?
City O City. I love the Satan fries. Let's get some together, guys.
Thank you so much. Is the sound working? We're good? Okay. That's all that matters. I've created, by the way, if you've noticed, a 10 seconds time and a time, just so you all are aware now. Okay, there's a lot of issues that you focus on at the Capitol, right? But we want to hear some specifics. So what's your number one issue that you want to work on at the Capitol, and what change would you want to make on it? So there's going to be a question for everybody. We're going to actually start in reverse order. So we'll start down here with Shanice.
Thank you. That's a pretty hard question to ask or answer. And the reason is because I think at a high level, we need our environment in order to make any type of change for our people. So I think climate action is extremely important. From my expertise level, I feel the most comfortable addressing healthcare and education. And we currently have some big issues coming up at the legislature in the name of provider rates. And provider rates is how we basically pay our providers. And the current governor's budget is saying that we're going to have to cut those. I personally feel like, as someone who knows the importance of caring for our providers so they can care for our people, we have to be able to pay them. So that is one thing that I would definitely advocate for. In the same fashion, we need to protect our education. So it's a tie for me, I'm sorry. But I'm going to have to say, I would also make sure that we're taking care of our marginalized communities in our education, specifically with the Department of Education potentially going away. That's how we pay for our English as a second language and for our individual education plans. And thank you.
Thank you. Representative Woodruff.
Thank you so much. So my passion and focus down at the Capitol has largely been on affordable housing. Housing is a human right, and it all starts there. The past several sessions, I've been able to secure hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding to combat homelessness, to convert hotels and motels, to create grant and revolving loan programs. Fantastic programs designed really to tackle, I think, our number one crisis in Colorado. Last session, I ran a bill to bar the use of price-setting algorithms, price-fixing algorithms by landlords. It died by one vote in the Senate. Just today, the Biden administration released a report showing that the price-setting algorithms has increased added $136 per month to Denver rents. Right? I am bringing the bill back this session, and I really hope to get it across the finish line. This is the time to meet the moment. We can outdo New Jersey on this. That's what I'm pushing for. Thanks.
We're getting better with this timing. Good job, everybody. Same question for you, Monica. What issue would you want to focus on? What change would you want to make?
Well, that's easy because the answer is the money, honey. I have been hearing from many of the POs who are here about the issues that they care about. People who want to make sure that we have rebates for EVs. People who want to make sure that their state para funds, because they're a retired state employee, that's going to cover their cost of living. People who want to make sure that we are repairing our roads. People who want to make sure that we do have affordable housing. And to do that, we need money. For those of you who don't, listen to all of the committee hearings the way that some of us do. The state currently has $1 billion hole that we have to fix in the budget. So we're going to need money to do that. I have experience in the past. I wrote and ran a bill, and I know that our legislative friends have some experience with that as well. But when I say wrote, I mean wrote the words that turned into the bill, where we captured some federal fees. That bill currently brings in $400 million of revenue for the state. So I got plans on how I would bring in a lot more money to do the things that I am hearing from the district that you all want to do to take care of our community.
Thank you.
Iris?
Okay, well, my preference is to get into the nitty and gritty of kind of all of the things that we want, all of our values, all of our priorities. But, all the great things that we pass in the city and in the state don't really mean anything if no one can afford to live there. So I do think kind of one of the most pressing issues is affordable housing, kind of the costs of living in this wonderful state. We're seeing this in blue states across the country. Unfortunately, they're doing not a very good job in making sure that the people who really make this city and state great are able to remain here and work here and live here. And so I think affordable housing is going to be key. I think we have to look at it in a multi-pronged way, right? We think a lot about kind of home ownership, but we also have to think about the rental market. We have to make sure that we are covering everything from transitional living programs to our unhoused neighbors to making sure that slumlords, we've been reading about CMZ, for example, and I think it would be great to pass a bill that penalized slumlords and allowed renters to be able to go on a renter strike with state assistance in order to bring pressure to bear on making sure that they have housing that is habitable, and that if it is not habitable, they will get their money back and be able to go find alternative housing. There's lots of problems in the housing market.
We are at times.
There's lots of problems in the housing.
We're going to have to keep moving.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Representative-elect Camacho, same question.
Tabor. I honestly believe that budgets and our system of taxation are moral decisions, and we are failing. We are failing because we are $1 billion in the hole before anyone even walks into the building. What does that mean? That means tangible cuts to affordable housing programs and mental health and education and infrastructure. Any progressive policy that we care about is hamstrung by the fact that our system of government does not allow us to create the change that we need. And until we address that issue, the mechanism of government, we can't raise enough because we have to give it away in a Tabor check. That is the pressing issue for the progressive agenda that we need as a state. That is what I am committed to doing. I've had the privilege of being part of the federal Tabor team for the last few years, challenging Tabor in federal court. I feel this is the moment that is uniquely suited for someone who is ready to take on this mantle, because until we address Tabor, we are just nibbling around the edges to our real problems.
On the dot. Good job with the timing. Okay. Matt Ball, same question.
Thanks, Steve. So I represent the city of Denver. I'm one of the two representatives for Denver on the Colorado Municipal League. Councilwoman Amanda Sawyer is the other. So I am exposed to what's happening inside the Capitol, and also work with a lot of the groups who are working right now with legislators to work on legislation to bring this session. So to answer your question, Deep, I have a suite of climate bills that I would like to work on that need a co-sponsor in the Senate. The same is true for mental health. And then I'd also like to run some bills that relate to things that I work on in the city where we have adverse impacts of state law. To give you an example, in Denver right now, we actually have to release people in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 in the morning from jail because of state law. That's something we need to fix, so I would run a bill to do that. But overall, I think the truth is that in this session, we're $1 billion in the hole. And this session is going to be about what do you protect. And what I would protect at the state is things that are core to our state, like education, like para, things that we need to fully fund because this is a lean year because of Tabor.
Issue and a change. Issue, Waste No More statewide with a focus on composting, recognizing that this is the segment of the renewable energy market that is building a market. At the end of the day, I'm a business owner. And so I want to look for market-driven solutions, not state-funded or unfunded mandates. What's the change? I really like this idea of renters maybe having a chance to stand up and strike against the landlords. But one of the things driving up the cost of rents in this state is the fact that one of the reps wrote 3 bills last year that created new class action lawsuits, some of them for renters. No one makes money in a class action lawsuit except for the lawyers. And the resolution takes a whole lot longer than weeks or months. It takes years. So the change is representing you, not self-interest.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Paul? All right, let's move on to our next set of questions here. We've got a question that we picked for each of you individually based on things that we read on the internet. So this should be interesting.
Make it a little bit spicy.
Number one, I think yours, we'll start with you. Okay, so this one is actually just something Deep told me. Deep told me that you identify as an abolitionist. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the last 2 abolitionists at the state capitol, Tim Hernandez and Elizabeth Epps, they both lost their seats last year. I heard that you hosted fundraisers for them in the past. What would you take from their experiences at the Capitol in how you approach their job as state senator?
I can't speak to how familiar I am with how they interacted with their colleagues at the legislature. That wasn't kind of what I was following. What I do know is that people should be thinking constructively about where our money is better spent than trying to address issues of potential crime at the tail end, right? And so there are many better ways for us to be spending our money to reduce crime and to reduce incarceration than waiting until kind of calling the police, which is a last resort, right, and depending on our prison systems. And I think everyone here, sitting here, is going to say, look, we should be funding, 10 seconds, we should be funding our schools, we should be funding kind of healthcare, and addiction recovery programs, etc. first. And so what I would learn from them is that you should be proud of the things that you care about, but I have my own approach to how I deal with things. People know me. I've been professional and a litigator my whole entire career here. and have worked closely with many people at the legislature already and have a good reputation there. So I think I'm a good person to carry those messages.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Monica, you're one of two candidates up here today with experience in healthcare. So we're going to ask you a conversation that's been happening all across the nation, which really revolved around the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. There's been an outpouring of solidarity for the shooter. Has that changed the way you approach healthcare policy at the state level?
First of all, that was a real tragedy. There's no problem where the solution is to take someone else's life. Does it change my approach to the state? I think it gives urgency. I have heard from people, including some of you have heard this story. There was a mom I was talking to last year who was choking up describing her child's medical condition, not because the diagnosis couldn't be solved, but because she wasn't sure how she was going to afford the care her child needed. And so I've been hearing these stories throughout my career. I've helped make healthcare more affordable for hundreds of thousands of people in Colorado. I didn't realize how close to the surface that sorrow and that anger was at a societal level until I saw some of that response. So it doesn't change my approach. I come in a very pragmatic, data-driven way where it also includes stories. But it does increase the urgency of this issue as we understand that that cost, more than most costs, really impacts families.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Shanice, you're also a healthcare provider. Same question. With this outpouring of support after the assassination of the healthcare CEO, how would you change your approach, if at all?
I have to echo Monica. There is no scenario where taking someone's life is ever appropriate. However, I've experienced a day-to-day life or a day-to-day element, my own patients having denials that didn't allow them to walk or run or live a healthy life. And before any of this came to fruition, I fought so hard and I left my own practice to make sure I saw change for my own patients. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't change because I've been doing this for the last 5 to 6 years. In addition, I think we have so much more work to do. I think in the preventative healthcare space, this just brings more to light everything else that we experience in our healthcare system. It's not just prosthetics. It's our ability to live preventative health measures, whether that be our access to healthcare in our schools and access to healthcare and other means.
Next up, Matthew Ball. I read that before you worked for our Mayor Mike Johnston, that you were on staff at a law firm called Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher, where you apparently worked on a variety of issues, including white-collar defense. So the question is, why should the Vacancy Committee pick you to represent the interests of all Denverites when you've spent so much of your career defending the wealthy?
Thanks, Paul. So I'll give you the honest answer, which is I agree with you. That's why I left. That's why I returned to public service. I've had a 2-decade-long professional career, and almost all of that has been in public service. The one exception to that is that I moved back home to Denver. It's a lot more expensive than it was when I grew up, and I wanted to start a family with my wife. She wanted to take time off, and I told her that I would support her. So I did it. I got out as soon as I could and came back to the mayor's office. But I'll tell you about the work that I did while I was there, because I do serve wherever I am and whenever I am. I built a pro bono partnership between my firm and the public defense community that was the first of its kind and won awards in the state, the CU Law School, DU Law School. We brought criminal defense cases to the Colorado Supreme Court, and I poured hundreds of hours of my time into that, and that program still exists. So that's what I did to continue to serve, because that's what I do throughout my career.
Thank you. Chris, you've been navigating Colorado and Denver's numerous weed regulations in hope of opening the Patterson Inn as a public consumption business. What, if anything, would you push as a state senator when it comes to weed?
I have no interest in pushing any agenda that would benefit me personally at the state. What I do professionally and what I've done around navigating the licensing in Denver is something that at 18 I said one day I was going to make a safe, legal place for me and all my friends to smoke cannabis together. I turned 51 in 2 days. I am under construction. I hold those permits at both the city and state level. I have personally been found suitable. I was able to find my parent company suitable to be licensed in this industry. This is navigating that nuance between the new space of public policy that cannabis has become and legitimate business. My business is the normalization and destigmatization of consumption through the pairing with a beautiful boutique hotel, moving us away from the vice. But when it comes to my legislative agenda, I've been doing environmental work since 1993. My commitment to making sure that clean air and clean water is our priority is unquestionable, and I have no interest in finding a path to personal gain through representing you in the state senate.
But just to follow up though, Chris, just because I'm interested, the weed market is tanking right now, and a lot of people say it's overregulated.
Cannabis market is not tanking. Actually, from an economic look, the production of cannabis in Colorado is still growing. Prices are falling, which is a natural thing that will happen as the market matures. But also, we have vertically integrated state by state. We still have not created national markets. Prices will fall again. Whether or not you consume cannabis on the street, in your rental car, or at some other venue that doesn't exist yet, my goal is to give you a place attached to your hotel. Consumption hasn't changed. Cannabis industry struggles, in many cases, of their own fault. Many cannabis industry operators look at the rules as a ceiling and try to lower that ceiling. I have always looked at it, I've always looked at it as a floor. That the responsibility of the industry, especially around things like age compliance, is greater than our rules and regulations. And so as operators, we have a responsibility to take those rules and regulations as best practice in a starting place. And I think we have to innovate and evolve. I am bringing policy that hasn't yet seen the light of day to fruition with this level.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you very much. Next up, a question for Sean Camacho. Chris Hansen endorsed you on his way out. He made a lot of headlines for resigning a week after being reelected. The whole endorsement thing, a lot of people were calling that a shadowy backroom deal. I think I called it that 100 times this week. Do you think he let down his voters?
I think you can really like Chris Hansen and all the things he's done. You can like him as a person, as a professional, but you can disagree with the way things rolled out. And I am not here to judge. Chris made the decision that was right for him and his family. Do I think it was unfair to voters? Yeah, I do. Because we just had an election, and now you have this entire panel up here trying to recreate that in a much smaller scale. I am incredibly honored to have Chris Hansen's endorsement. I didn't ask for it. I found out about it from the press, actually. But I think it's really important that the person who we're all trying to fill their job thought I was the best person for the job. I think that speaks volumes. And while you mentioned it earlier, and I made a comment to Steve Woodrow, because you keep calling this a backroom deal. Look at where we are. This is an incredibly open process. We have over 100 people who are giving up time during the holidays. These are community activists who are trying to make the best decision for themselves. And I think it is fundamentally unfair to call this process or what they are trying to accomplish backroom dealing.
Again, it's not a backroom deal today. It's Santa's Workshop, brought to you by Town Hall Collaborative. Thank you. Okay.
So a round of applause for Town Hall Collaborative.
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay. Last for the personal questions for online is Representative Woodrow. Recently, you've used executive privilege to get out of a speeding ticket in which you were going 18 miles per hour. Also, along with me...
Sorry, 18 miles per hour over the limit.
Yes, 18 over the limit.
Was it going too slow?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I gotta clarify that. Also, similar to me, you loved a website once known as Twitter, and you did get in some hot water with a controversial tweet seeking to celebrate the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Should voters be worried what you'll do with an even bigger platform and more power at the Capitol?
Thank you for the question. I actually deleted my X account in the aftermath of the assassination attempt, where I did say something very insensitive that I apologized for. My point, of course, was that a sympathetic Donald Trump was more likely to win the election, and that's bad for America. It's bad for all of us. But I certainly could have communicated that in a more effective manner. And I want to note that under the dome, I have a record of bipartisanship. I passed the ban against governmental NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, on a bipartisan basis. 48-hour bond hearings, which we got across, was done on a bipartisan basis. So I do have a track record of reaching across the aisle. In terms of the speeding ticket, yeah, I'll own that one. That was legislative privilege. I was trying to show an AP government student. We had a DPS bond hearing that day with UD, and court in the morning, and the only thing on my docket was my own speeding ticket. And I had a conversation with the student ahead of time about how in America, it's still a country where you can go into court. It's not predetermined. You can argue your case to the judge, and if the law's on your side, you can win. I donated the $40 to Bonds Against Drunk Driving. I think of all the scandals, I'm glad that you asked me about those two. Thank you. I think you did.
All the scandals.
Wow. All the things I've said online, I really appreciate that those are the two questions.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Tomorrow show. Tune in on CityCast. Wherever you find podcasts.
All right, let's move on to a question we have for all of you. So you're all going to get an opportunity for this one. It's about our governor, Jared Polis. He's a very popular governor with a strong hand on everything that happens at the Capitol. He's also got a big personality. So we want to hear from each of you. What's one thing you agree with Governor Polis on and one thing you disagree with him on? We're going to start with Shanice.
This is a good question. It's a toughie, too. I have actually a personal experience. I was working on a bill, House Bill 231136, mandating prosthetic care for patients of Colorado, both children and adults. And we got to a point where we had passed both the Senate and the House unanimously. And we got to appropriations, and we had a bit of a hiccup in terms of the Division of Insurance not quite agreeing with the fact that it's a healthcare mandate. We were told that there's no way a healthcare mandate is going to pass. We don't do that even here in Colorado. Well, part of the reason why we ended up being able to pass that bill is because I love numbers. My dad's a CPA. He's always taught us as kids growing up, make sure you know the cost of your ask. So part of the process of passing that bill was publishing a peer-reviewed paper where I basically said not only is the cost going to be this much, but we're going to save this much over time and a net value of $30 million annually in Colorado. Now, initially we were told Governor Polis was going to veto our bill. After reading my paper, he did not. So I disagreed with his initial decision to try and veto, and I agree with his decision now to not veto. So thank you, Governor Polis.
Good wrap up there. Good wrap up.
Thank you. I'm listening.
Representative Woodrow, one thing you agree with Polis on, one thing you disagree with.
Great. Thank you for the question. So House Bill 1313, the Transportation-Oriented Communities Bill, was a 2-year effort, and it was the governor's sort of hallmark central piece of housing transportation legislation. We saw very much eye to eye on that. I think as we grow as a state, we need to do so in a smart, strategic way. We have 1.8 million more folks coming to Colorado. You all are very cool people to live with. By 2050, we have to find housing for them, and we have to do so in a way that's denser and more compact, cutting down on vehicle miles traveled, improving our air quality. Where I strongly disagree with the governor is his recent normalization of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And his appointment in the Trump administration. I reached out to the governor's office. I contacted him and his people to say, this is not acceptable. There are other ways to say that you think we can fast track getting drugs imported from Canada than bashing the Department of Nutrition and normalizing someone who is frankly office robbery. So that's where I disagree most vehemently with the governor.
I was going to double tap on that. So you said you called the governor's office. What was their response to that?
Several of the people who work for the governor were actually taken aback and surprised. We have autonomy as elected officials. And sometimes we
Did he respond to anything?
Pardon?
Did he respond to you at all?
No, he did not. But, you know, that's not unheard of. I imagine he was hearing it from tens of thousands of people at the moment, as certain members of his administration and staff said that their phones were melting and that they understood the message.
Yeah, he didn't answer my email either. It's okay. Monica?
Paul, I would always answer your email, just so you know.
That's on the record.
I like it. So I have also had the opportunity to work with the governor when I was chief policy officer at Connect for Health. Some people call it Obamacare. It's the exchange where you can buy health insurance. We worked hand in hand with the governor and his Office of Saving People Money in Healthcare. And there were times that we disagreed as an autonomous group. We were a C3, still are. We had an opportunity to push back, but you have to figure out where you can come together and where you do have that same value. So there were times that we were able to work together. One of those, I would say, is when the governor was talking about both large and small businesses in Colorado. And he was saying, well, if we're going to reduce costs, that means somebody else's revenue is going down and they're going to have to be innovative. And so as a business owner, I kind of appreciate that competitive pressure to be innovative. And I completely agree with him. That's where we are. On the disagree, I'm right there with you. Growing up in a country that didn't have access to preventive medicine, vaccines save lives. We invest in car seats, we invest in seat belts, we invest in bike helmets as preventative medicine that saves lives. And I will stand by that every time that he and I have a conversation. And every time that Paul sends me an email.
Thank you. Thank you. Iris.
Okay. I agree with the governor quite a bit on a number of issues. Kind of the biggest one, I think, is that he has excoriated the legislature for not doing enough to build housing, for not figuring out ways to create more affordable housing, and in general with the obstacles that we have come across being able to really make progress on this issue. It's easy for me to say that I disagree with the governor on Kennedy, and I do, and everyone in this room does, but to take it a step further, we do have broad exemptions right now that really allow for students and children to avoid getting vaccinated before going to public schools that are much broader than other states. And I also have some issues with the fact that I worked on the Power Bill, which kind of revised the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act to change the standards for employees who are bringing forward harassment, whether it's on race, sexual harassment, et cetera, at work. And I wrote that bill and advocated for it, lobbied for it, did stakeholder outreach, and that was sabotaged for about 3 years by the governor's office. So we finally did get it passed, but it was no thanks to the governor, and I disagreed with him greatly in that end, even though he ultimately did sign it.
Thank you so much. Representative-elect Camacho. How about you?
I really appreciate the governor's mission on lowering our cost of living. I think it's something I ran on. It's something when I've talked to people in this district, it is a pressing concern because I think people feel this kitchen table problem of prices are too high, wages aren't high enough, and they're feeling squeezed out of their communities and their houses, and that isn't right. We are one of the wealthiest and most educated states. We can do better, and I really appreciate the governor's focus on reducing cost of living for all of our citizens, especially folks that live in this district. Where I disagree with the governor is on his fraught relationship with labor. I grew up as, I wouldn't call it a family business, but our family made our living for many, many years stocking shelves as independent contractors for 20 cents a case. And that is a lot of cases, 7 days a week at nights to just pay rent and mortgage and provide for everyday lives. And it wasn't until my mom got a union meat cutting job that our lives completely changed. So when I see the governor having issues with labor, I have issues with that.
Paul?
Yeah, there's a number of things, excuse me, that I agree with that the governor has done. Some of the housing legislation that was mentioned that Steve's been involved in is on that list. Universal pre-K, too, I've taken advantage of as someone, and something I've really appreciated that the governor pushed early in his administration. In terms of disagree, there's a number of things that I disagree with the governor on. I think his general fiscal attitude really squeezes the state, and that hurts us. There's the RFK piece too. I honestly thought that was a joke halfway reading through that tweet. But then, I also think the governor's recent actions with RTD is a thing I disagree on. Trying to pull really the political power in RTD towards Boulder, I don't think is the answer, and that's something I would fight for in Denver to make sure that RTD focuses on our city.
Statewide climate solution is front range trams, and I support the governor's efforts to see us rebuild and build transit here in Colorado. Also, universal pre-K and the fact that we funded that was a step forward in our state. But let's go back 10 years when then Governor Hickenlooper and then Congressman Polis were playing games with fracking. I don't agree with the governor often. In fact, I'm on that side that represents and gives him a hard look sometimes because time and again on issues that are important to the people, he has played politics, made a promise of a mile and gave us 2,000 feet. But most of us still remember Jared Polis of being strong on the environment and good on fracking when if we go back one decade, we have to remember the politics that were involved. We need climate action that addresses the concerns around health and safety in our homes and addresses the need for a clean economy and a clean environment going forward. And that work has not always been front and center on the the candidate for president's mind.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you think he's ready for president?
The websites have been purchased. I think they're redirecting right now to the governor's page, but they're still building SEO. So time will tell, but certainly he's not running today, but I think he's always had his eye on it.
Okay. Next question is going to be for everyone as well. So voters in Senate District 31 elected Senator Hansen just last month. Senator Hansen was a very known quantity in Denver and in the state legislature. He was known as championing climate, as many people here have said. He was a broker on the property tax deal. He was known as a budget wonk. And those are some pretty big shoes to fill. In particular, he used to have a role on both finance, appropriations, and the joint budget committee. Right now, we have $1 billion deficit at the state capitol. $1 billion. And we're going to have to cut some things. So I want to hear from everybody. What are you going to cut? And we'll start with... So, here?
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, let's go with Matt. Matt Ball. Yeah, that's why I chose you.
Thank you. So I recently went through a very similar exercise to this in the city. The city balances its budget every year, and like the state, the city has had a big reduction in the amount of sales tax that it collects. So the city is in a similar position of facing, a lot of cuts along a lot of programs. The way you do it is you get all of the agencies together and you go through those budgets line by line, and you cut things that are discretionary. That hurts. You can't do that without making a cut to a good program. But that is a lot of grant programs that the city currently runs, that the state currently runs. That's a lot of things that aren't part of those core services that I think we need to protect. Those things are education, para, these really core state services. The sad truth is a lot of the other stuff is up for grabs, and you just look for what's going to have the least amount of impact in the next year. It's a terrible process, but that's how it's done.
So what are you cutting?
I would look for grant programs, probably new pilots that the state has started recently is the first place I'd look. That's what we did today.
Okay, thank you. $1 billion of grant programs. I'll find them. Representative-elect Sean Camacho.
I think it's easier to start with what I would fiercely fight to protect, and that's education. I think when you look at opportunity for communities of color or just our kids in general, education makes a difference. It provides opportunity for them to make more in their lifetime, and we have a constitutional requirement to fund it. We need to focus on education, because when we don't, there are other tangential effects. Where do we cut? Well, $1 billion, we're not going to get that through grant programs. We're not going to get that through pilot programs. There are going to be some hard decisions, and I think Senator Bridges said it recently, there will be blood, and I hate using that. But we're going to have to come to the realization that state services, our healthcare reimbursements are going to look different in a way that's really negative. But the thing that I cannot stand by is losing education funding. We just came out of COVID. Our kids are already behind. We do not need to lose a generation because we haven't funded it, because that is unacceptable.
The governor's budget right now removes a $200 million smoothing factor. So it's essentially a $200 million cut to K-12. Would you disagree with him on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Iris, same question. What would you cut $1 billion budget?
Okay, well, like everyone else up here, I think the answer is going to be that there's no one place to cut, and it's not going to look pretty no matter what we do. I think the things that I would focus on without actually, having all of this in front of us to do that assessment on are things that we maybe have grand ambitions for, but we can put off. And maybe do some of the legwork, the planning this year until we fix our budget. And so a lot of these, plans for, unfortunately, for housing, services that kind of help with transportation. I would love to see free transportation, ultimately public transportation, but that's obviously not going to happen, right? Right now. So I think that every program is going to have to take its cut. And the best way to do that is to make sure we are thinking about what we can fund in the future as soon as we possibly can once we get our budget straightened out.
Quick follow-up based on one of your previous questions. voters approved Prop 130 last month, which gave $130 million additionally towards law enforcement. 150. 350. I am so sorry. It's Prop 130, $350 million. Got those numbers mixed up. Do you think we should fund that fully?
No, I don't. I think that is one of those pilot programs that we should be delaying the implementation of as we try to at least understand where we think that funding would best be spent. It is mandated funding, so we're going to have to get to that eventually, right? This was a voter initiative, so we don't really have a choice on that in the long run. But I think this is one of those areas where we can delay until we have a better budget.
Thank you. And Monica, same question.
Sure, I agree with a lot of what has been said thus far, and I have heard from folks in the district about those priorities that we want to protect. I've heard from many of you that we want to fully fund our schools, so that is not where we should be cutting. I wanted to just pull up some numbers I had. So the state budget is about $46 billion with a B dollars. 38% of that, $17.5 billion, is spent with healthcare policy and finance. And there is some opportunity within there to create more efficiencies. For any of you who have received state benefits, you understand the sheer amount of mail that you get and the noticing and the changes. And that is one small example of many places within that department where we can improve the administration and reduce some of the costs. As a business owner, I understand it's easier to increase revenue. And so again, I would run some bills that we can get into more detail later that will bring in revenue outside of the Tabor cap through other mechanisms that can cover those costs so we do not have to make the cuts on programs that you all care so deeply about.
Can you name one of the revenue programs you would create?
An enterprise.
For what?
It's a name.
Yeah,
oh, okay. I wasn't sure how familiar you are with tax law.
Yeah, that's my job.
Okay. That is one of them.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Nobody wants to hear about enterprises on CityCast.
I do. Anyways, it's an excellent question. First, you're right. We do. Everyone up here, whoever's fortunate enough to get elected, has big shoes to fill. Not only from Senator Hansen, but Senator Corp before him and Senator Stedman before her. That's right. I'm one of the people at the Capitol who's taken a stand against tax cuts recently, specifically because I know that this is going to be such a painful conversation. How it really works is that the Joint Budget Committee gets together and they create a list, essentially, of things that are going to die. And we get to caucus about it and talk about it as a group. I think if we're going to be cutting, I agree with everyone, we shouldn't be cutting health care and education. We already have rural school districts on 4-day weeks. What we really need to do is take a closer look at the Department of Corrections and subsidies for large corporations.
Thank you. Shanice?
I'm actually bummed because you took my answer, and that was the only one I had that nobody else said is Prop 130. I fully think that our education is the basis of, third grade reading literacy rates, right? They tell us what our prison capacity should be. So absolutely, we should not defund our schools. We just got rid of our budget stabilization factor, and that was a huge deal. We already are 49th in the nation for higher education, 48th for K through 12, 50th in the nation for teacher pay. So absolutely not education. You guys have heard me mention provider rate cuts are not something that I would support either. However, with that being said, I hate to quote my colleagues here, but I completely agree. We are one of many, so I think we all are going to have to make some type of cut eventually. Being in higher ed, we're usually at the bottom of the food chain. That's something that we're very familiar with, but that is also another place that I don't believe we should cut because it's the basis of our workforce and our economy.
Thank you, Shanice. And Chris?
So I'd like to see us cut subsidies to oil and gas extractors. I want to have a conversation that's real. There's $1 billion hole in the budget because we were living off federal dollars for a long time. And we didn't invest in our future, we invested in needs. And now that that money isn't there anymore, the needs are still in front of us. I want to, as a small business owner, to remind my colleagues that our job in making a budget is to look forward into the future. And to be sitting here with $1 billion hole, recognizing that most of that is a loss of federal funds that we should have been predicting or should have never been living on in the first place, is important to remember. But as a business owner, revenue is one of the ways to create money, but unlikely because Tabor, right, the Denton law firm that Representative-elect Camacho works for, represented the people of Colorado, lost that lawsuit. So any changes to Tabor are going to require a change to the state constitution, not just a legislative change. And so these conversations, this budget conversation, requires taking the pencil, finding the math. But our core priorities, everyone's right, we defend our core priorities, but we cannot keep spending federal dollars that will not reoccur every year.
I feel like I was addressed correctly.
Go ahead.
And I'd like to correct the record. We did not lose that lawsuit. That lawsuit was never heard on its merits. We lost after 13 years on a procedural issue, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's the difference. And we talked about Prop 130, about $350 million. This is why Tabor is so important, because wealthy interests put that on the ballot. Wealthy interests has dictated fiscal policy for the state. Now we're all up here arguing, where do we cut? Where do we cut? Not your elected representatives made that decision. Wealthy interests that put that on the ballot set us up for the system we have, and that's why Tabor needs
Thank you.
All right, we're getting a little back and forth here. Let's keep going with that. We teased this. We want to give each of you an opportunity to ask a question of one of your fellow candidates. And we're going to start with Monica Van Busker.
And we'll give you about 15, 20 seconds to ask the question.
Yeah, we want a question, not a,
not
a monologue.
Not a monologue.
How you guys have been asking very efficient questions. We shouldn't need that amount of time. No, I'll ask a question to Shanice. What's the first bill you would run?
Good question. The first bill that I would run would actually be something in support of affordable housing, believe it or not. I really feel like Shannon Bird is doing her absolute best in trying to attack this construction deficit. And it's something that I feel like she's been attempting with Zenzinger for, I think, a few sessions now, and I think they are getting close. So from a perspective of living here, I think I've talked a lot about education and healthcare, but to have a home here is something that I was able to do in 2017 because I purchased a home at $200,000. And currently we do not have that ability because condos have gone down significantly since 2002, I believe. So I would support her efforts in any way that I possibly can.
Thank you. We're going to switch it up. We're going to go the opposite direction. Iris. That would have been another way to do it. But we're going to go to Iris.
Well, because we cut a deal earlier, I'm going to ask Monica what the first bill she's going to work on when if she was going to be elected to the legislature.
Shadowy backroom deals. I don't like them.
No.
It was in Santa's workshop next to the candy canes with a snow cone.
Monica, what would be your first bill?
No, the first one, I've mentioned it already, is there are user fees at the federal level that the Trump administration is likely to deregulate. There's several of those fees that we have the authority to capture here in Colorado. We put them into an enterprise, which is outside of the Tabor calculations, because that money then has to go back to whomever pays in. Speaking of Tabor, I would love to run a bill where those rebates are administered in a very artful way. Yes, we have to give back rebates, but we can construct them so that they benefit families, so that they benefit schools, and that would be a second one. And if I may even have a third, Iris, I would improve our state tax forms in the way that I have done in a previous bill. So instead of having to fill out your taxes and then go to Excel and say, here, I qualify for reduced electricity, there could be a very secure data exchange. We've done this before. The Department of Revenue loves when they get to help people instead of just getting charged with new ways to take taxes. And that would be a no-cost way to help people be able to afford Denver.
Thank you so much. Representative-elect Camacho, do you have a question for your fellow candidates?
I do. Chris. Oh, wait, no. Iris. How are you spending your holidays? We're here. It's the holiday time. What are your big plans?
Question about what legislation I'm going to work on, but I actually have a trial I have to prepare for, so I will be doing nothing but working because I have a 9-day federal trial at the beginning of January. Sorry, not an exciting answer. Can I have the legislation question?
Yes. What would be your first bill?
Okay. So
No. That was your question. Matt Ball, your turn. A question for a fellow candidate.
Sure. I'll go with Sean. So, Sean, you talked a lot about Tabor, and I agree with you. It's the elephant in every room. What do you think the legislature can do about Tabor without going to the ballot?
So I have to be real careful here because I'm currently working on something that would not have to go to the ballot. But I think there are ways that the legislature can assert its prerogative to determine whether or not it is authorized to raise taxes, whether it has the right to make policy decisions for the people that elected them. So I think that is something that does not have to go to the ballot. That is a very creative way of getting around it. But I'll offer you this because I'm trying to be careful on talking too much about it. My first bill and my second bill that I'm really excited about is focusing on working people. The first one is earned access to wages. So if you are an hourly worker and you have something catastrophic happen, you need to access that money earlier. This would be a regulatory scheme to allow you to do it through your payroll provider. So you don't have to go to a predatory lender and get into a cycle of debt that you cannot spiral out of. That is my pre-file bill. The second bill I'm incredibly honored to be carrying is for veterans' mental health. Like Matt, I have served on numerous combat deployments. I am still the deputy commander of my unit at Buckley Space Force Base. Veterans' mental health means a lot to me. I
think I have to cut you off. I'm so sorry about that.
We actually started. We just have to say your answer was for the Tabor thing, concepts of the plan, essentially.
Correct.
We will go to Chris.
All right, this is a process about vetting. I'm an open book and welcome every question, even the hard ones. Sean, hard one for you. As a former Republican who changed parties to run in this district, I've been a volunteer in the Democratic Party for well over 25 years. My question is, on your profile at the Denton firm, it says that you serve at the junction between policy, politics, and your client. You've been struggling on your answers here, and I'm concerned and would like to know the balance of how you can prioritize the work of the people against the policy, procedure, priorities at the firm, especially when we start talking about some questions. If it ever ends up in litigation or a part of a case you're working on, it might impact or affect your ability to be engaged or transparent. Can you answer that?
Sure. And I'll push back. I don't think I was unclear about any of my answers. I think one thing that you have to be careful of when you are working, because we don't pay state employees or anybody enough to do two jobs and live in Denver, is you have to be concerned about conflicts of interest. So I have a very robust plan to clear conflicts of interest. I've worked with my firm. I've worked with the legislature. That will not be an issue. I think when you notice on my website that I have an intersection between politics, law, and I think it was achieving results. What that's really talking about is I have a government contracts practice where I do many things. And one of the things that I am so proud of doing is representing small and minority-owned and women-owned businesses that are getting screwed by the government. Lots of my time are suing the federal government for the reimbursements those businesses deserve. And I'm incredibly proud of that because it takes being able to navigate the intersection between law, policy, and politics.
All right, next up, Shanice, do you have a question for a fellow candidate?
I do. This question's for Matt. One of the main reasons I'm running is because of how frustrated and scared I am of the upcoming federal administration. What do you think is the biggest threat for Coloradans?
It's a great question. That's a fear of mine. That's the reason that I got involved in this race. I think what scares me about the Trump administration, there's everything about immigration. I think that's top of mind for everybody. But it's that we might see the federal government just go away. And there's a lot of things that people depend on, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security, that people rely on, that you need to pay the bills. And if we have a Trump administration that is just completely slashing the little safety net that we have in this country, that keeps me up at night. I got into this race because I want to build a mental health care system in the state. There really isn't much of one now, but if the federal government goes away, there really isn't much of one. And that's really scary. We need a safety net in our state.
Thank you so much. And finally, our last question from Representative Woodrow.
Thank you, and great questions so far. I guess my question would be for Matt. You've worked at the city and at that level of government. You also indicated that you have a relationship where you serve with the municipal league. Oftentimes at the state level, there can be a tension between city, local governments, and the state government. How do you see yourself balancing those competing interests?
I guess I don't see it as a tension. I mean, I think I would fight for the interests of Denver at the state in the same way that I fight for them at the city. And in fact, a lot of times I think the great thing about the state is you have more levers that you can pull where the city doesn't. To give you one example, the program that I run, Roads to Recovery, we work with really high acuity mental health, and we run into very often an answer for individual cases, which is the state doesn't have any beds, just period. We've got 2 state-run psychiatric hospitals in the state. Maryland has about the same number of people. They have 5. In Maryland, that's not enough. So I'm looking forward to being able to work on the same issues that I work on in Denver at the state, because sometimes that's where the solution is to a local problem.
Well, thank you all so much. Those were great questions. Deep.
Let Iris answer. That question is. You didn't get a good question. Let Iris answer a real question.
No,
Thank you. First, Bill. No, I think everyone had their turn. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, we're going to. Not everybody got asked the questions. Representative Woodrow and Chris didn't get asked anything either. So that's just the nature of how this goes. Okay, so we are headed to the home stretch. We're going to have a lightning round, and then we're going to head into, I believe, closing statements after that. So there's going to be a hands-up lightning round. I'm going to read out a question. If you answer yes, you're going to put your hand up in the air. Just so we can see a affirmative, can you raise your hand for what a yes will look like for each of you? Okay.
That's great.
So now when you see the levels, there might be something different. It's hard because the podcast is audio. Okay.
Yeah, I'll say your names. I'll say your names. We'll talk about it.
Okay. Are there any circumstances in which it would be appropriate to drink alcohol or consume cannabis at the Capitol?
Woodrow.
That wasn't a yes or no.
Are there any
circumstances?
Are there any circumstances in which it would be appropriate to drink alcohol or consume cannabis at the Capitol?
Halpern, yes. Van Buskirk, yes. Woodrow, yes. Camacho, yes. Majority, yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
Should state senators make more than $47,000 per year?
All right. Ball, yes. Camacho, yes. Halpern, yes. Van Buskirk, yes. Woodrow, yes. And Maloof, yes.
I also.
Lightning round, we gotta be quick. Should we repeal Tabor?
Unanimous. Everybody, yes.
I feel like people in the audience even raise their hands. Okay, should Colorado ban sales of flavored tobacco statewide?
We got Halpern, yes. Van Buskirk, yes. Woodrow, yes. Maloof, yes. And Camacho, a late yes.
Okay, Colorado's Labor Peace Act makes it harder to form a union in Colorado.
Woodrow's a yes already. Camacho,
Requiring 2 elections and 3/4 vote for workers to make a union membership at a workplace required. Would you be in favor of repealing the law?
Say it again. Retaining the law?
Yeah, sorry. So Colorado's Labor Peace Act makes it harder to form a union.
You said to retain, so they all want to support retain.
No.
I'm a 50%
Who would be in
plus
favor
one.
of repealing that law?
That's everybody. Unanimous.
Okay. Do you think Senator Hansen did a good job?
All but Chiari on that one.
Okay, and if you get elected, then get offered a highly paid job, for example, in Durango, Colorado, maybe making $550,000 per year.
Beautiful Durango, Colorado.
Yeah, beautiful. Would you quit to take it?
What's to say we weren't already offered that job and instead we're here tonight with you all?
Oh, no hands there.
No hands.
No
No hands on
hands.
that one, Pete. Well, it's time, I think, for the final question. It's closing statements. 60 seconds, each of you. Say whatever you want. Chris, your time.
My name is Chris Chiari, small business owner, 30 years as an activist. Yes, I've been a little critical tonight because, again, this process, what I've heard at the doors is a frustration with process. This ascension politics that the elected officials in there will hand select, that the elected official that might win this Senate district has already hand selected who they want in their House districts. You have not had a say in this district for lowest court against Steve Sherrick was the last time. I am the candidate that doesn't represent anyone's interest but yours. I am the candidate most likely to face a primary in 2 years, and I welcome that. Because each of you that have a vote represent 1,600 people for the 160,000 people that live in this district. And the only way we'll get back to a primary is by making sure institutional candidates backed by institutional money don't retain the seat for the duration. I want your voice to be heard both in this process as well as in a primary in 2 years. My name is Chris Chiari, and I'm running to earn your support. I am doing an open house at Patterson Inn on Thursday. It's my birthday, the 19th. Please come by. I'm going to charge you, but come by and have a drink with me.
Happy birthday. Matt Paul? The most important lesson that I learned about leadership when I was in the Army is that you should judge leaders not based on what their superiors think of them or their peers think of them, but based on what their soldiers think of them. Because people will not follow you if they don't respect you, and they won't follow you if they don't trust you. The most personally meaningful part of this vacancy campaign for me has been that I have people who have worked for me at the city who are part of Roads to Recovery, case officers, case managers who volunteered for my campaign, knocking on doors on the weekends, and supporting me. And the reason they do that is because they know who I am as a leader. I show up, I work hard, I stand for the things that I believe in, and I'm honest about it. And I build things that work, and I do that by bringing people together for Roads to Recovery. I brought together cops and social workers and members of the community providers, and we found something that worked. We solved the problem. That's what I'll do as the Capitol, and that's what I think we need right now at the Capitol. In the face of a second Trump administration, keeping Colorado strong is people who will show up, who will lead, and will do the work, and that's what I've done my entire career.
Thank you so much. Representative-elect Camacho, your turn.
Sure. I just want to thank CityCast. I want to thank this great audience. I think it's really notable that we all got together on a Tuesday night during the holidays to take this process seriously, and I really appreciate that. Because far too often, frankly, many of the folks in this audience don't get the respect they deserve because they're trying to do their best. And I see that. I see you. I hear you. And I thank you for that. As I talked about at the beginning, this is an opportunity for change. Change in legislative approach, change in priorities. And that's what I bring. I talked a lot about Tabor because I am so incredibly passionate about it. Because I just can't stand by any longer and watch as we're making really tough decisions. And we don't have to. We really don't. We can make a difference, and we can make those changes that we need here at the state, and we just need leadership for that. And as I mentioned earlier, when people talk about Trump 2025, I take that personally because that's my community, the Latino community. And gosh, do we need more representation in the Senate because it is simply inadequate right now. And we have an opportunity to both change and provide the representation we desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you. Iris Halpern, your turn.
Well, I think I just want to thank everyone here. This has been a really short debate, right? But every single person here has not only done the work for this party to make sure that we continue to be successful, they're the real heroes in the room, but you're now also, anyone who's on the committee, basically standing in for 1,400 voters who don't get to make this selection. And so, 1 hour is not enough. And even though it's the holidays, I think we all here are going to thank you for the time you're putting into this. You're going to get bombarded with phone calls, but the power is in your hands for what this district and what the state are going to look like moving forward. And it's a really small number of people. This is not the most democratic process, but you're doing your best. So I thank you for being here, for taking all of our ideas seriously, for getting to know us, not just tonight, but in the future and in the past as well, if you've come to events, etc. All of us want to serve this district. All of us want to serve this state. That is why we're all here. You've got passionate people with good ideas before you. And so we're just going to want to thank you and keep getting to know you and hear from you. And I hope that you also take all of us seriously. My name is Iris Halpern. I have a lot of ideas that I have not gotten to share today because someone didn't ask me about my first bills. I'm going to be here afterwards to answer questions.
We got to move on now to Monica Busker. Your closing statement, please. Thank you.
Okay, I hope that one thing all of you take away tonight is to please reach out to your elected officials. We love hearing from constituents, and you've heard a lot from us. I was hoping we'd get a chance to get questions from the audience, but instead what I'll reflect back is what I've heard either in conversations with you or as a PO myself. I'm voting on this vacancy committee. It's my third one that I'm voting on. And what I've heard from you and from our neighbors on the doors is that you want somebody who cares, somebody who genuinely listens, and somebody who takes action. You don't want a show horse, you want somebody who's going to do the work. I am no stranger to challenging business decisions, difficult family conversations, or to running policy under a Trump administration. And so I'm asking you to join me so that we can make Senate District 31 a place where we all feel safe, where we can afford to live, and where we can really, truly thrive. So thank you for voting for Monica Van Buskirk.
Representative Woodrow.
Thank you. Thank you once again to our hosts and CityCast for having us and for giving us this opportunity to share our views and our vision with all of you for SD 31. I think we're fortunate to have so many great candidates. And with a little more experience, I think so many of the folks up here would be excellent legislators. I'm the one who's ready on day one, ready to hit the ground running. I'm working on my bills right now. And it's not just the fact that I've been at the 3 a.m. hearings in committee voting down bad Republican anti-LGBTQIA bills, or on the House floor, voting to repeal the death penalty or enshrine abortion access into law. And it's not about the endorsements. It's about the fact that in February of 2020, the voters put their trust in me to represent HD6, and then voters put their trust in me to represent House District 2. And the Return on Investment has been a fierce advocate for our shared values, smart policy, and the Democratic Party platform. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to be here tonight. It means the world to us, and we look forward to serving you one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve Monroe. And finally, Shanice Malouf.
Thank you. I just want to say that this was the most unexpected medicine that I needed. Since last month, especially as a woman of childbearing age, I felt forgotten by this nation. And to have all of you listen and be excited for all of us to sit up here and give you guys choices, I think you have all showed us leadership to show up and listen and take action. And you have a hard job to do. We all care about relatively the same things, and we all have experience in different ways. And for myself, as someone who's changed laws, not just in this state, but across the nation, I'm ready to fight for what Coloradans believe in and keep what makes us so sacred in this state. So thank you so much.
Thank you all. Let's have a round of applause for all of our candidates.
Yes. And a round of applause for the audience. Thank you for coming. I think one of the interesting things that we wanted to do is, shining a light on this process, opening this up. So if you're a vacancy member, or if you're even not a vacancy member but live in Senate District 31, feel free to come up here and chat with us, chat with the candidates. We'd love to get more of the insight. We're going to be taping a show tomorrow. We'll have some of our comments. And if some of the vacancy members talked about this, but if you can raise your hand if you're a vacancy member. So look around this room. If you're just a Senate District 31 member, you can talk to these folks too, and then they might be interested, they might not be interested. But thank you for what you're doing in opening up this process.
And Town Hall Collaborative once more. While you're chatting, get another drink, show some love, tip the bartender. Thanks everyone for joining us. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
They sent something out. I'm fine with it. Yeah, make sure that you
Yeah.
Yeah.